Trying to get all the stuff out of my teeth. Shouldn't have eaten first.
Shouldn't have ate something so chewy.
Well, it's like a granola bar. Why did I choose that? Should have had like an apple or something refreshing. But no, I had a granola bar. Welcome to the first ever Game of the Year 30, or as I like to say, GOTY-30. This is RetroLogic's yearly Game of the Year show where we don't talk about games from this year. Everybody does that. What we're going to do is we're going to talk about games from the year 1990, and only games from 1990 in North America that we know about or talk about. Just games that we love, really. So, John, are you as excited as I am to be here tonight?
Very excited. And I think we're definitely more capable at our age now of choosing a Game of the Year for 1990 than we were in 1990. Yes.
Yes. I guarantee you my Game of the Year in 1990 at the ripe old age of 4 years old was probably like Tag. Tag was Game of the Year. You're it.
Pong.
Yeah. Played a lot of Pong when you're 4 years old.
Yeah, probably. We had an Atari before we had anything else. So.
Oh, right on. Right on. Yeah, we had an original Nintendo. It was my brother's, and I definitely remember playing Super Mario Bros. That game did not come out in 1990, did it? No.
It did not.
No.
Neither did Pong.
No. And actually, the Super Nintendo was not even out yet in 1990. It was a couple years away. We
91.
did have. I believe the Sega Genesis was either that year or the year before.
I think it was the year before.
Was it 1989? Yeah. It had to be. So there's quite a few Genesis games in here that are pretty beefy, I think. Some hard hitters, some contenders, but unfortunately for them, this is also the year that a certain third Super Mario Bros. Game was released and is just one of the greatest games ever made. So really, we're going to find out if any of these games are better than Mario 3. That's the whole thing tonight, John. Which game is better than Mario 3? I should rename the entire event that. So we are not going to keep you too long, hopefully. We're going to try to breeze through these discussions because what we're going to do is we're going to list off the title of the award. We're going to each pick our top game, and then we're going to talk a little bit about, maybe we'll pick the same game. If we pick different games, we're going to have to come to a consensus about which of these games truly deserves to be the top game in that category. So hopefully it doesn't take up too much of your holiday time, but we appreciate you listening nonetheless. So John, without further ado, let's start. We're going to start at the bottom of this list so that we can kind of build up some hype toward what the actual game of the year. Yeah, work our way up. And close to the top is our community chosen community game of the year. Of 1990 from our Discord, and they voted and they chose, and we will find out what that is. Spoiler alert, Mario's in it. So, but there's more to it than that. We're going to have some fun with it. So the first award we're going to give tonight is Best Original Soundtrack, and the nominees are Castle of Illusion starring Mickey Mouse on the Sega Genesis, Super Mario Bros. 3 for the NES, Dr. Mario for the NES and Game Boy, and Mega Man 3 for the NES. Now, John, what is your nominee for the Best Original Soundtrack?
I think I'm going to have to go Mega Man 3 on this.
Okay. Now, here's the problem, is I've never played Mega Man 3, so I have a decision to make. Either I'm going to say, you know what, John, I trust your judgment with Mega Man 3, or I'm going to stick to my gut, which says that Dr. Mario is the best, has the best song ever written in it. So how could I choose anything else? I mean, how do you beat that?
It is really good. I was definitely, in all honesty, it was down to those two for me as well. Dr. Mario would have got it if not for the... If I have to take the game as a whole, Mega Man 3 just has more good music in it. You know, Dr. Mario kind of gets stuck at that one track as you're playing it. So,
yeah.
But yeah. I do agree. Dr. Mario, that's a very catchy, very memorable tune that they created for that game.
Yeah, and I definitely will concede that the variety of music in Mega Man 3 has to be what makes it so memorable. I mean, you've got some really, really, really... I mean, what, eight bosses plus a final boss level? So
yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and say, all right, I'm going to vote for Mega Man 3 with you, because as much as I love the Dr. Mario song, that is a song a soundtrack does not make. You need a soundtrack to earn this. And I think that Mega Man 3 is going to take this. So the winner of Best Original Soundtrack this year is Mega Man 3 for the NES. Congratulations, Mega Man 3. You know, it's been 30 years coming, but you really pulled it out. Good job. Good. So John, do you have the whole list pulled up?
Yes.
Good. Why don't you read off our next game category?
So the next category is Multiplayer Game of the Year. The nominees for this category are Smash TV for the arcade, Dr. Mario for the Nintendo, NES, and Game Boy, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, the arcade game for the NES, and Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers for the NES.
Okay.
So I already have mine for sure. This is definitely has to be Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, the arcade game. It's the definitive multiplayer experience.
That is a good one. That started the Turtles down the whole beat 'em up path, which cannot be denied as an iconic gaming trope. I am questioning whether Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers holds up against Turtles 2. Because as much as, here's the thing about Turtles 2, like it is a top-notch beat 'em up, like it's really good, but it is a beat 'em up from beginning to end. And you're mashing buttons at the start of the game, you're mashing buttons at the end of the game, and you are playing with somebody, but your interaction with each other in Turtles 2 is pretty limited. You're basically both just beating guys up. Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers has a much more... It feels like your combined powers do more in the game. You're able to kind of carry each other a little bit. You can throw each other. So
yeah, the puzzle mechanics are definitely there in that game already.
Yeah, so that's what's in my mind. And as much as I love Turtles 2, for multiplayer game of the year, I have to choose something that really takes multiplayer and does something with it. You know, instead of just having two people do the same thing. Like Smash TV does the same thing Turtles does, where you're both doing the same thing the whole time. You're shooting in all directions, you know, and then you're shooting in all directions in the next level. Whereas Chip 'n Dale really knocks it out of the park with their co-op experience.
Yeah, I think I'll go with you with Chip 'n Dale. It's definitely a preview into what's to come with multiplayer games in the future. A lot of multiplayer games today, puzzle games even, kind of borrow things from this for sure.
Awesome. Good. Well, thanks for seeing my side of things there, John. So multiplayer game of the year this year, we are going to say Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers for the NES. All right. Our next category, we've got Innovative Game of the Year, just a game that really did some new and innovative things in the year 1990. We've got Super Mario Bros. 3 for the NES, Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon and the Blade of Light for the Japanese Famicom. And I want to say something about that because that's not something I would normally put in a list like this because it's not a North American game. This is a North American list. But in light of its recent re-release and localization, I thought it would be cool to add just to kind of get a modern perspective on a game that we probably would never have been able to play in 1990. But now it's become available to us. So I threw it in here just as kind of a nod to that. And who knows, maybe it'll win something. So we've also got for Innovative Game of the Year, Dr. Mario for the NES and the Game Boy. We have Wing Commander for the MS-DOS and The Secret of Monkey Island for the PC. So, John, do you have a winner in your mind here?
This one is kind of tough. On one hand, I like Fire Emblem because it's a strategy game that, you know, there's not a whole lot of other, at this time period, a whole lot of strategy games in that vein.
Well, and it started a juggernaut of an IP for Nintendo.
It did.
Mm-hmm.
But then The Secret of Monkey Island is actually, you know, a very iconic game from this time period with its innovativeness as well. So I'll let you chime in first, and then we'll see where we land. So
I was actually going with two games as well. I had Super Mario Bros. 3 in there, you know, and not to just give every award to one game, but I mean, honestly, Super Mario Bros. 3, I love Super Mario Brothers. I love Super Mario Bros. 2, but 3 with its overworld and with its hidden keys and running all over the map and it let you cheat the system. It just took platforming games to the 16-bit era in the 8-bit era. You know, everything after Super Mario Bros. 3 had to be different because Super Mario Bros. 3 changed the game. That being said, the core mechanics of Mario have largely gone unchanged. So was it really that innovative? That's my question. The other game that's on my mind is The Secret of Monkey Island. Which I feel like I would just love to give Monkey Island an award in this show. And this one seems appropriate just because of the beautiful artwork and just the clever puzzle mechanics. And it really, aside from Maniac Mansion, kind of put point and click adventures on the map, at least for me. So I would give it to Secret of Monkey Island. Actually, that would be my pick.
I think that's where it needs to go. Cause I mean, like you said, Mario 3, very innovative for that franchise, but as far as a game series as a whole, not as innovative as others.
Right. And that's not to say it's not an amazing Mario game. It's probably in my top 3 Mario games of all time. But this specific award is for innovation, and I want to give that to Monkey Island. So I think we're in agreement there. So the Innovative Game of the Year, this of 1990, is Secret of Monkey Island for the PC. John, you get a very divisive next category. Go ahead and read that off.
So the next category is Overrated Game of the Year, and the nominees are Fire Emblem, Shadow Dragon and the Blade of Light for the Japanese Famicom, Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers for the NES, Smash TV for the arcade, and Final Fantasy for the NES.
Okay, here's the thing. You know how I feel about Fire Emblem. So that is probably my top choice.
I feel like you created this category just so that you had a place to put Fire Emblem.
No, well, I mean, hey, you know, when you're the master of ceremonies, you get to make the rules. But I'm not. You know, now here's the thing. I don't want to just give it to Fire Emblem because I hate Fire Emblem. That's stupid. If you feel strongly about any of the other games, or even if there's a game listed elsewhere that you want to add to this category, I'm happy to hear an argument for a different game.
I mean, I think you have some good stuff here. I could probably go Fire Emblem but that's the thing. Fire Emblem at this point in time is not even rated very high. I don't think, like, it hadn't even hit a stride of popularity.
Sure. Yeah, that's true.
Smash TV is, to me, is one of those games that's always held in really high regard, and I don't ever see it in that sense. It's not my cup of tea to begin with, but I know a lot of people that love it, and they're always trying to talk me into it, and I'm like, I don't get it.
Here's the thing with Smash TV and Total Carnage. Those games are one thing the whole time, and they don't even do that thing very well.
No, exactly.
Because you need two on the Super Nintendo. It was fine because you could shoot and move in two different directions. Okay, I think Smash TV is going to win this because you make a really good point about about Fire Emblem. I'm going to give it to Smash TV. Overrated game of the year, Smash TV in the arcade. Ooh, okay, this next one's kind of a doozy. We've got mascot game of the year. So, this is a game that has a very recognizable character as its front runner, either because of the game itself or because it's just an iconic character. So, we start off with Bonk's Adventure for the TurboGrafx-16, Super Mario Bros. 3 for the NES, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, the arcade game for the NES, Castle of Illusion starring Mickey Mouse for the Sega Genesis, Moonwalker for the Sega Genesis, Michael Jackson's Moonwalker, Little Nemo, the Dream Master for the NES, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Fall of the Foot Clan for Game Boy, and Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers for NES. So there's a lot of games in this category. So this one takes a second to think about, I think. What's up?
To me, like, there's the obvious winner, but then there's also the game that is like my favorite as a fan, Little Nemo and the Dream Master. Like, I loved the animated movie. The game was okay. Like, it's not a like one that really sticks out, but it was okay. Like, it was good for a licensed game at the time. But I honestly, I think Mario has to be the most iconic mascot.
He is the most iconic. I mean, he and Mickey Mouse probably will fight to the death on being the most iconic. I like what you say about Little Nemo. I love the character of Little Nemo, which is what this category is all about. But you are right that his game is...
It's a licensed game.
It's pretty good, right? Like, it is a top tier licensed game, but it is still not. It's not Mario 3. It's not Castle of Illusion. It's not Ninja Turtles. And so I think that, oh man, this is so tough because here's my gut. My gut wants to go with Ninja Turtles. For a couple of reasons, right? Mario is Nintendo's mascot. He's a mascot because of the game. So he doesn't exist really outside of other iterations of Mario, and other forms of media usually aren't very good. TV shows, movies. Ninja Turtles in 1990 was peak multimedia. I mean, the action figures, the TV show, the movie, the game they were firing on all cylinders. The lunchbox, there it is. John holds up the lunchbox. He just got a vintage lunchbox of Ninja Turtles. I am I am in favor of choosing Ninja Turtles 2, the arcade game, as mascot game of the year. And it's not even that good of a beat 'em up. It's probably the one of the worst of the Ninja Turtle beat 'em ups, but we're talking about 1990 here. 2-player beat 'em up on the NES, which was part of a huge property that was not only just important to me as a kid, but just had quality throughout all of its media. So that would be my choice for mascot game of the year.
The Wizard's not doing it for you, huh?
Just hey, my other choice was Moonwalker, so
I'll give it to Turtles. I think
all right.
I think you're right. Turtles at that point in time was massive. I mean, it was everywhere. It was honestly, it was like the Pokemon of that time period. You couldn't go anywhere without seeing it.
I had a box full of action figures as a kid. I love Ninja Turtles. And so I feel like for this particular category, it has to be all about the mascot and not necessarily like the game or what it represents or whatever, or how the quality of the game, even though the quality is very high. All right. So John, next category.
So next category is Underdog of the Year. And the nominees are Bonk's Adventure for the TurboGrafx-16, Snake's Revenge for the NES, Fantasy Star II for the Sega Genesis, Herzog Zwei for the Sega Genesis, Little Nemo, the Dream Master for the NES, Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers for the NES, and Columns for the Sega Genesis.
Yeah. So part of this is how you define what an underdog is, and I think for these purposes, it would be a game that kind of flew under the radar at the time. Like in 1990, maybe it wasn't the biggest hit in the world, but has since come to some sort of popularity through collecting or people realizing it was good or whatever. That'd be my definition of an underdog.
So what do you like here?
Well, so I have two choices that I want to go with. One of them is Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, which I didn't play until later, and I never even heard of or knew about until then. And so I'm wondering if it flew under the radar in 1990 as well. And it's just such a good game. My other one is Herzog Zwei, which I don't know. I don't think you've played that one, have you, John?
I have not.
Herzog Zwei is kind of half strategy game, half top-down shooting spaceship game, where your spaceship transforms into a walker. It's just a really, really, really interesting game that I feel like was really kind of cerebral and hard to comprehend at the time in 1990, but since then has gotten some notoriety just for being kind of innovative in its field. And I'll look at the price of it real quick. Do you have any games in this category that you really are attached to?
I don't know that I have any that I'm super attached to.
Yeah, complete in box.
Wonder...
Complete in blocks. Herzog Zwei is a $77 game on Sega Genesis, which is really high for a Genesis game.
I think we have to talk about Bonk's Adventure, though.
Okay.
Just for the fact that, this was its first game, and it went on to have plenty of sequels. It even reached across to other consoles at some point. I think there was a Bonk game on the Super Nintendo.
Yeah, for sure.
Which I think is the one that I played. And this is basically, TurboGrafx mascot. But I think at the time that it came out was very, looked over. It was...
And the whole TurboGrafx was looked over.
Exactly, yeah. This one, not saying that it's necessarily the winner, but it's definitely one that has gone on to have a kind of an odd legacy over time, being on a console that just kind of got overlooked in general. And then nowadays you can't get a hold of them.
Yeah, right. They're pricey now, and I definitely see what you're saying with Bonk, because it is a solid platformer. I mean, it's not a bad game at all, and the decision to
kind of came out on the ugly duck of the console.
It came out on the TurboGrafx, so who played that? I'm okay with giving it to Bonk if you feel like that's a good go.
Yeah, it just feels like a good fit for this one.
Yeah, that's good. So, Underdog Game of the Year, Bonk's Adventure for the TurboGrafx-16. Our next category, Beat 'em Up of the Year. We gotta do some beat 'em ups. So we've got Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, the arcade game for the NES, Michael Jackson's Moonwalker for the Sega Genesis, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Fall of the Foot Clan for Game Boy. So we got Turtles against Michael Jackson.
Yeah, there's 4 versus 1. I think the Turtles could take him.
I think. Well, I don't know. He's got that magic hat, so he just.
Yeah.
Have you played Moonwalker at all?
I have not played Moonwalker. I have to be honest.
Then I'm gonna go ahead and save us a whole conversation and say I'm gonna give it to Turtles 2 on the NES.
Yeah.
Here's the thing about Moonwalker. It just kind of plays very strangely. It's the animation and the audio is on point. It just kind of plays like so weird. Just you don't never know what direction you're facing or what you're doing, because you literally moonwalk in the game. So it's a tough call. That's a tough one. All right. Okay, John, you're up next.
Yep. The next category is Strategy Game of the Year. And the nominees are Fire Emblem, Shadow Dragon and the Blade of Light for the Japanese Famicom, and Herzog Zwei for the Sega Genesis. So I think I'll let you have your... I know which one you want for this, and I'll let you have it.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Herzog Zwei, Strategy Game of the Year. Thank you very much. It's just... everybody... I think everyone should go and give Herzog Zwei a try. However you can find a way to play it. It's just such an interesting a mixing of genres that I just think it's really, really cool, and I really would love for more people to play it and get into it. Make that price go up with that cartridge. So our next category is Puzzle Game of the Year, and we have a whole 2 of them. We've got Dr. Mario for the NES and the Game Boy, and we have Columns for the Sega Genesis. And wow, do you feel like Columns is better than Dr. Mario, John?
I do not.
No, I don't. So we're going to give that one to Dr. Mario. Just sorry, Columns. You are okay, but you are no Dr. Mario.
No, you are not.
I'm going to read this next one too.
Oh, yeah, go for it.
Shmup of the Year. So, Shmup, shoot 'em up. We've got Wing Commander for MS-DOS, Herzog Zwei for Sega Genesis, and Super Star Soldier for the TurboGrafx-16. Now, have you played any of these games, John?
I have not.
Okay.
This is a bad category for me.
So I haven't played Wing Commander, so I can't speak to that. I've played both Herzog Zwei and Super Star Soldier. I would give it to Super Star Soldier for one reason alone, and that is that Herzog Zwei, just as a shmup, is not a very good shmup. It wins the award for strategy, not for shmupism. So, do you mind giving that one to Super Star Soldier on the TurboGrafx?
Nope, let's do it.
All right, good deal. Because that is a solid shoot 'em up. I mean, it's iconic. It's one of the best, I think.
I'll have to check that out now. If I can figure out a way to play it.
Did the Wii U have TurboGrafx Virtual Console or just the Wii?
I think it does have some. I'll have to.
I believe it's on there because it's one of the most sought after and best regarded games on that system.
So the next category is RPG of the Year. And the nominees are Fire Emblem, Shadow Dragon and the Blade of Light for the Japanese Famicom, Final Fantasy for the NES, The Secret of Monkey Island for the PC, Phantasy Star II for the Sega Genesis, and Final Fantasy Legend for the Game Boy.
So have you played the Final Fantasy Legend Game Boy game?
Yes.
Okay.
It's not adventure, it's legend.
Okay. What's its deal?
So it is this is the Saga game. Mm-hmm. So this is a part of the collection that we were talking about on the last episode.
Yeah.
So this is more along the lines of your standard RPG.
Okay.
I don't know that I would place it ahead of Phantasy Star II for the Sega Genesis. But I definitely think that it is maybe a little bit better than Final Fantasy on the NES.
Really?
And Fire Emblem at this point in time is, to me, more of a strategy game than an RPG. Later games in the series have more RPG mechanics to me than this one does. So I would have to give this to Phantasy Star II if I'm having to pick.
Here's my thing with the Phantasy Star games is all of the improvements that have been made to the game with the Sega Ages, kind of, and I think that was Phantasy Star 4, actually. I don't remember which one it was. That was an Ages game.
That's Phantasy Star 1. So the game that had all the improvements on was the original game. And I believe that some of those improvements have already made their way to the second game by the time it comes out on the Genesis. Okay.
Because I just have such a limited experience with Phantasy Star 2. And really any of the games that I play on this list is the original Final Fantasy for the NES, which I'm not a huge fan of, and Monkey Island, which as far as RPGs go, that's a very loose definition to put Monkey Island on this list anyway. So I would default to you and say, if you want to do Phantasy Star 2 for RPG of the Year, I would go with that.
Yeah, I think we do Phantasy Star. I think that's
the
best choice on here.
Now I have to go back and play it, because my limited time with it was very, I didn't think very highly of it, but I would have to play it again.
I think that it's on the Genesis collection, but I'm not sure. It's on one of them.
Yeah, I'll have to go back and check. So, RPG of the Year is Phantasy Star 2 on the Sega Genesis over Final Fantasy, which I'm sure is going to make some people very angry, but that's what we're here for.
Oh yeah.
My next category is Action Game of the Year. We're getting closer to the top here. Action Game of the Year. We've got Snake's Revenge for the NES, Smash TV, the arcade version, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, the arcade game for the NES, Herzog Zwei for Sega Genesis, Michael Jackson's Moonwalker for Sega Genesis, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Fall of the Foot Clan for the Game Boy. Action game.
I think I still have to go Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
I was thinking about that. And man, I just have such little experience with Snake's Revenge. But I remember the original Metal Gear was quite varied in what you do in that game. It wasn't just a straight beat guys up, follow a maze thing. It was a lot going on there. So I wish I played enough of Snake's Revenge to be able to fight for it. And I'm not going to vote for Smash TV. So I think we're going to have to give it to Turtles 2 on the NES.
I feel bad for Fall of the Foot Clan, because it is a excellent Game Boy game, but it's just hard to compare it to its 8-bit color brother.
Yeah, yeah, totally. It's like when those two are on the same list, like, well, which one am I going to choose? Obviously. It'll have its chance up later with the portable game of the year. All right, go ahead, John.
All right, so the next category is platformer of the year. And the nominees are Bonk's Adventure for TurboGrafx-16, Super Mario Bros. 3 for the NES, Mega Man 3 for the NES, Castle of Illusion starring Mickey Mouse for the Sega Genesis, Little Nemo, the Dream Master for the NES, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Fall of the Foot Clan for the Game Boy, Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers for the NES, and Gargoyle's Quest for the Game Boy.
Yeah, quite a list there. Lots and lots of games. We got 8 games there. And each one is more impressive than the last. So my two top choices here are Super Mario Bros. 3 and Castle of Illusion.
I think this has to go to Mario because
yeah,
as much as I liked Castle Illusion, it was not a perfect platformer like Mario 3 is.
No, it did some interesting things, and I think, unfortunately, part of its downfall was that the animations were so detailed, and it looks like a walking, talking cartoon, a playable cartoon.
Yep.
But yeah, it just,
like, to me, a closer matchup would be Mario 3 and Mega Man 3 to me.
Oh, really?
As far as platforming goes. Yeah, platforming. I mean, Mega Man 3 is a strict platformer, but it's definitely there.
What about
it's definitely more platforming than Mario.
Did you play
Mickey Mouse.
Did you play any of Gargoyle's Quest?
Yes, Gargoyle's Quest is good, but again, it's really hard to put Game Boy platformers up against NES platformers or even Genesis. True.
Too true. So then I think platformer of the year has to go to Mario 3 because I can't fight for Mega Man 3 as far as platforming goes, and Mario is the iconic platformer. So that's that.
I would say Mario 3 is still the clear winner.
Yeah.
But if I had to give a runner-up, it'd be Mega Man 3, probably.
Cool. I have such a soft spot in my heart for Castle of Illusion.
It is a good game.
It's such a good game, and it does some really interesting platforming stuff and animation and mechanically. It does some really cool stuff. I don't know. I guess going up against Mario 3, I guess you're just doomed to fail.
Yeah, it's a very good game.
All right, you're up next there, John.
I think I just read the last one.
Oh, you did platformer? Okay.
Yep, I did platformer. You're next.
So TurboGrafx-16 game of the year. So these are all the TurboGrafx-16 games that are noteworthy that came out this year. And we are slowly working our way up to the big boys. So TurboGrafx-16 game of the year nominees are Bonk's Adventure, Devil's Crush, which is a pinball game starring demons, and Super Star Soldier. And I don't know that have you played any of these, John?
I've played Devil's Crush.
Okay.
This is I've either played it on a virtual console or I've played this on a ROM through emulation. I'm not sure, but I have played it, and it's a good game. And the follow-ups are even better.
Was it Alien Crush? Was one of them?
Yeah, and then I'm trying to remember the third one.
I just have a hard time giving game of the year to a pinball game.
No, definitely Bonks is pretty good here.
Bonk is also really good. Super Star Soldier, I know you haven't played it, is a masterclass in shmups. Man, that one's really hard because I haven't spent a significant amount of time with any of these besides Super Star Soldier. So, do you feel?
I think No, Super Star Soldier is fine.
Okay.
In fact, it's probably better at what it does than Bonk is at what it does.
Yeah, I mean, Bonk is fine.
Nobody's calling Bonk a masterclass in platforming.
Bonk is fine, but just as far as holding these games up against, every other game on this list, and even the games up here on this on the TurboGrafx list, I have a hard time giving Game of the Year to a pinball game, so that's a me problem. But also, it just does what it does so well. You said it. It does what it does so well. Let's skip this next one because we're not going to skip it because PC Game of the Year is The Secret of Monkey Island. Because
that's a clear winner.
Neither of us played Wing Commander to be able to fight for it. Sorry, Wing Commander fans. I'll get around to it. Go ahead and do the next one.
All right, so Sega Genesis Game of the Year. Nominees are Phantasy Star II for the Sega Genesis, Herzog Zwei for the Sega Genesis, Castle of Illusion starring Mickey Mouse, Sega Genesis, Moonwalker, Sega Genesis, and Columns, Sega Genesis. Should make sense since this is the Sega Genesis Game.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you didn't have to read
off.
that. It's fine. It's very official that you did. Thank you for doing that. I feel like we're doing a real awards show now. So,
yes,
ding dong. Even though it has not won a single award yet, I would really like Castle of Illusion to win something.
Yeah, I think this would be fine for Castle of Illusion.
But it
is a fantastic game.
It's kind of like Jack of all trades, master of none, right? Like, it's not a great platformer. It looks really pretty, but I mean, you play it and you just feel good. Yeah, the music is really good. You feel good while you're playing it. It's a fun thing to jump into. Phantasy Star II and Herzog Zwei are both very niche, I would say. Phantasy Star maybe not so much, but I'm definitely not giving Game of the Year to Herzog Zwei. So it's between Phantasy Star 2 and Castle of Illusion. And I actually would not mind giving it to Phantasy Star 2 based on your recommendation, your high recommendation of it earlier.
Yeah, I think we could do Phantasy Star 2.
Okay. All right, let's do it. Phantasy Star 2, Sega Genesis Game of the Year in 1990. Next up is the NES Game of the Year. This is a big one. We've got Super Mario Bros. 3 for the NES, Fire Emblem, Shadow Dragon, and the Blade of Light, Final Fantasy for the NES, Mega Man 3 for the NES, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the arcade game for the NES, and Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers. So the question is, do we not give NES Game of the Year to Super Mario Bros. 3 so that Mega Man 3 can win NES Game of the Year? It is.
It's so hard to not just award everything to Mario 3 because it's such a great game.
I know it is. I just want to hear a good argument.
I don't think I have a great argument for any of these games to Mario 3. Not as a whole.
Yeah.
For Game of the Year, because I think it's just superior in every category. Yes.
So, NES Game of the Year has to be Mario 3. I guess it has to be.
I think so.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Mega Man 3 fans. This is not your year. You just chose a bad year to release that game. All right, this is a fun one. We've got Handheld Game of the Year. Let me take a drink of water real quick. We have Teenage, which is pretty much exclusively Game Boy because Game Gear was not a thing yet. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Fall of the Foot Clan for the Game Boy. Dr. Mario for Game Boy. Balloon Kid for Game Boy. Gargoyle's Quest for Game Boy. And Final Fantasy Legend for Game Boy. So none of these games have won an award yet, I think. Oh, Dr. Mario won Puzzle Game of the Year, but that...
Yep.
Yeah, that is also on NES. So But I don't think that that's the handheld game of the year, because that is a puzzle game. And there are some other very, very good games on this list that I would rather highlight. Final Fantasy Legend and Balloon Kid are both really, really good. Turtles, Turtles is really good too.
Gargoyle's Quest is a really good game as well. So,
man,
to me, the only one that doesn't just stick out as a great game, and Dr. Mario is a great game, but this was also on the NES. So to me, I think I'd rather give this to a game that was only on the Game Boy.
Yeah, I agree with that. So of the other four, the two that really stick out to me as far as like my experience with them or lack thereof, or the recommendation of them, is Turtles and Final Fantasy Legend. So which one of those two hits you the hardest?
As much as I like Turtles, I'd probably have to go Final Fantasy Legend on this one.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I feel like it's a solid game. RPGs shine on handheld platforms because they don't have to rely on a lot of like fancy animations or large sprites. They can kind of live in a smaller world and rest on their laurels.
Struggles on Game Boy.
Right. Okay.
You have the
handheld
blur, motion blur, and
yeah, exactly. And with a RPG game, you're choosing from a menu. So Final Fantasy Legend is handheld game of the year. This is a fun one.
So
Who's next?
The next category is console of the year. And the nominees are the NES, the Sega Genesis, the Game Boy, and the TurboGrafx-16, which is quite a lineup to come out in 1 year.
Yes. These consoles did not launch this year.
Or not come out in 1 year, but
they all had pretty impressive lineups. Yeah. And actually the TurboGrafx might have come out this year. I didn't actually check. I can check real quick. But I think
I don't think any of those actually came out.
Oh, really?
In 90. Yeah, I think they were all prior. Because Game Boy was also 89, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Genesis was 89.
TurboGrafx might have come out this year.
May have been 90.
Which one of those? No, I don't want the TurboGrafx Mini. Come on.
That came out in 2020.
Yeah. North America, nope, 1989.
1989, yeah.
89 was the year.
Actually, after I said that. 89 was the year that all these came out, except for NES.
I think we have to give this to either the NES or the Game Boy.
The Genesis. Oh, Game Boy.
Yeah, as much as I love the Genesis lineup here, as far as like the whole, like the swath of games available for the Sega Genesis, this is not the like top tier list of games.
It's not the year.
It's really not. There's no Sonic the Hedgehog, it just, there's, I think the NES, the great sports games haven't arrived yet. Sega Genesis this year, unfortunately, suffered a bit. And Game Boy was really starting to hit his stride, Tetris is no longer the only thing to play on your Game Boy. You've got an RPG and a Ninja Turtles game. So
to me, though, I think the NES still has the more impressive lineup of games at this point. It's at full stride in 1990. It's at the close to the end of its console cycle. Super Mario 3 shows, full potential for the NES. Whereas Game Boy still has a long way to go. It has a near 10-year life cycle.
Yeah.
And a lot of the greats for this console come out after 1990. So to me, in 1990, the Game Boy was still a high dollar toy. You know, it hadn't really proven itself yet.
That's true. I will also say, though, that this year is kind of like the farewell year for the NES. Because after this, I mean, they were still trying to bust out the Super Nintendo in North America, but that's still 2 years away. But at this point, people are starting to pick up Sega Genesis. So this year is kind of the swan song of the NES. Even though we still had 2 more years of it, Nintendo was like, you know what I mean? Whereas the Game Boy, this is the year where people looked at the Game Boy and said, oh, it's not just a Tetris machine. You know, kind of like I was saying earlier, you've got a Final Fantasy game, you've got another puzzle game, you've got Ninja Turtles, you know, you've got some platformers that are starting to come out that are halfway decent. You could pick up a half dozen games for the Game Boy and feel really good about your purchases and not just play Tetris all the time. So from that context, I almost want to give it to the Game Boy because of where it is in its life cycle. You know, like, yes, the NES had Mega Man and Fire and Final Fantasy and Ninja Turtles and Chip and Dale and Mario 3, and they're all iconic. But then the NES drops off. So, but I guess
we can give it to Game Boy.
That's just my.
It's also.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, it's also, the Game Boy is, you know, very iconic for being the first handheld to really try to bring console gaming to your hands.
Oh yeah, it was the first like widely accessible and affordable handheld system that was worth anything, you know. And I feel
it wasn't
like
a Tiger handheld or a Game and Watch,
right? Yeah, exactly. You know, or the Atari Lynx, which is incredibly expensive and had no games.
Exactly.
All right, so let's give console of the year to the Game Boy. All right, our next category is arguably the most important of the day, arguably. And we've got our community chosen game of the year, which is separate from our chosen game of the year, but we are going to go through some of these nominees and which ones were chosen, voted on the most, starting with the games that got 3 votes. So our nominees were, there's 10 of them. There's Mario Bros. 3, Smash TV, Fire Emblem, Final Fantasy, Mega Man 3, Secret of Monkey Island, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, Phantasy Star 2, Castle of Illusion, and Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers. Now, the community could vote on as many games as they wanted, but they could only vote once per game. And so the games that got 3 votes were Final Fantasy, Ninja Turtles 2, Castle of Illusion, and Chip and Dale. Castle of Illusion got 3 votes. That's cool. And there was one other game that got of more votes. There were 2 games that got more votes than 3. And the runner-up is Mega Man 3, which just barely lost. It had 4 votes. And our winner this year for the community voted game of the year for 1990 is Super Mario Bros. 3 for the NES with a whopping 13 votes. Wow.
Definitely the clear winner.
Yeah. Wow. So Brian S., third strongest mole, voted for Mega Man 3. Who else voted for Mega Man 3? I can't see it. I mean, we had some people voting for Castle of Illusion. Eric Plunk and Neoprime 33 voted for Castle of Illusion. Some votes for Final Fantasy from Spider Shan and Ad Rock. We've got some votes for Chip and Dale from Eric Plunk and Adrock. I mean, you know, people were fighting, but pretty much everybody who voted for Mario 3 as well. So it was kind of a landslide. You guys love your Mario 3. All right. And so we finally made it to the game of the year for 1990. John, why don't you go ahead and read off the nominees for Game of the Year 1990?
All right. So Game of the Year nominees are Super Mario Bros. 3, NES, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, the arcade game, NES, Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, NES, Bonk's Adventure, TurboGrafx-16, Mega Man 3 for the NES, and Castle of Illusion starring Mickey Mouse, Sega Genesis.
Okay. Now, before we start the discussion, John, are there any games that we talked about that are not on this list that you would put up as a contender for Game of the Year? I tried to choose a pretty solid list of like the best of the best games, but you know, I don't always know what's in your head, so I try to pick some good stuff. But we did a pretty good job with our picks based on what I thought Game of the Year was going to be, because
did Castlevania 3 come out in 1990?
Oh, yes, it did.
How did that not make it on our platformer?
Is that a platformer?
Oh yeah.
You know what? This is where this is one of the mistakes that I made.
Action
is that maybe Castlevania 3 should have been better represented throughout the list. That's my bad.
I don't think we had it on the on any.
No,
category.
It wasn't, because it was added later, and I think I added it and then forgot to go back and add them to the nominees. So that is totally my bad.
So we have to at least shout that game out because it's a fantastic game. Castlevania 3 is probably one of the better Castlevania games. I don't know that it's a strong contender for Game of the Year. Not with Super Mario Bros. 3 on the list. But it definitely would have been a probably still not platformer of the year, so I think we're safe there. We didn't really have a
adventure game.
It may have shook up action game if it was in that list, but I think we're still good. I think we just shouted out that it was definitely a great game for 1990.
Man, yeah, it's for sure. Yeah, it's for sure worthy of an honorable mention, because it started Castlevania down the path that it's currently on with Castlevania 4 and Symphony of the Night. And a lot of the mechanics that we see is in all the Castlevania games since then started with Castlevania 3. And I just think it's really cool having the whole like multiple characters angle and multiple paths and all that. I mean, it is really, really cool. Yeah, it's definitely up there. And there were not a lot of other like adventure games in this year. Otherwise I would have put adventure game as a category. And hey, next year we've got Zelda, so maybe adventure game will be a thing, but sorry, Castlevania 3. I snubbed you accidentally. My bad. Honorable mention to Castlevania 3. We can add it to the Game of the Year contenders if you'd like.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine. We can add it in there. Definitely don't, like I said, I don't think it's going to topple Mario for me.
That's kind of where we're at now. Are any of these games a more worthy Game of the Year contender than Super Mario Bros. 3? Like, if you okay, John, here's the exercise. If you had to choose a game on this list to go up against Mario 3, you had to choose one what would be your best guess? My choice,
like I think we were talking about, I think Castle of Illusion would be the
really
the one to go with it
for Game of the Year.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, is because to me,
my thing is Mega Man 3 is one of the best Mega Man games ever made. You know,
yeah. It's definitely a strong contender,
you know, and I would say Turtles, but Turtles 2 in and of itself is not like the best. You know, I mean, if you play it today, you just want to go back and play Turtles in Time because it's not super playable now.
No.
But Mega Man 3 is infinitely playable now. You know, all the Mega Man games are really. So
yeah,
that would be
my
it's
between
pick.
Those three, but I definitely think that even with as strong of contenders as they could be, that Mario 3 is still light years ahead of those two games, and you know, with its game mechanics and what it's done with the series at this point.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with you that it would take something pretty monumental to knock Mario 3 off of its spot. And as great as these games are, I think we just have to give it to Mario 3. I mean, it's Mario 3's year. It's his year, you know? Next year it'll be different, but this year belongs to Mario 3. That I think is my honest opinion. There's just so much going on in Mario 3 that makes it iconic today as it was 30 years ago. You know, the big and small levels, the moving platform levels,
Mario rides in a shoe. Come on.
Mario rides in a shoe. Come on. Shoe. You know, it is still today argued to be the best Mario platformer. Even though we all know that the best Mario platformer is Yoshi's Island. So I'm gonna give Game of the Year to Mario 3. Are you okay with that?
That's where I'm at.
All right. So this year's 1990 Game of the Year is Super Mario Bros. 3 for the NES. Whoo-weesh. I want to thank everybody for listening, for being part of this, for voting. This was super fun. I'm definitely going to do this every year because it was really, really fun. Yeah, next year we got Zelda and Metroid, so it's going to be quite a year.
Lots of good games in 91.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, John, anything else?
I don't think I have anything. I think this has been a Game Awards.
Closing it out. Thanks for listening to RetroLogic, and thank God that 2020 is over. If you like the show, if this is your first,
to 1991.
Yeah, right. if you like the show, if this is your first time listening, please consider subscribing, giving us a review. We'd love to chat about retro, and you can also follow me at Blockfort Retro and check out my bio where you can join our Discord. We have a really great Discord of passionate fans of retro gaming and collectors, and it's a positive place. It's a friendly place. We love to invite new people in and chat about Plock. So with that, I will see you guys next year, and I can't wait to see what it brings.
See you guys later.